potentially really exciting news. The President is hailing it as a historic day. And then you heard that if larger companies are involved in this mRNA technology transfer hub, within 9 to 12 months, we might be manufacturing our own COVID vaccines. Well, I'm joined now by the President and CEO of the SA Medical Research Council, Professor Glenda Gray. Prof. Gray, thank you so much for joining us. This sounds on the face of it like really exciting news. The first messenger RNA technology transfer hub. And as was explained at that media briefing, we already have the hub. We just might need the equipment, etc., etc. Is she referencing the fact that we have a BioVac? Is that the hub that she's referencing?
So we have two things. We have Afrigen, which will do the clinical development and the biological development, and then once the tech transfer has occurred at Afrigen, this will be transferred to BioVac, who will do the product development. So you need two programs, one to receive the tech transfer and two to take it to scale. And so having Afrigen and BioVac as the people who will develop the mRNA is important. And then we have, obviously, we have to test it and evaluate it. We have to make sure we have good manufacturing capability. We will have to do animal studies as well as human studies to establish that there is comparability to the original mRNA that we've done the transfer for. So this is very exciting, and we do need messenger RNA. We do need mRNA technology in Africa. We have the capability in South Africa to do this, and it'll be very exciting and obviously very important for COVID vaccines and other things like TB and HIV as well. Using that technology, we could use that platform for other vaccines.
So at the moment, we have two mRNA COVID vaccines, as far as I know, Pfizer and Moderna. Would this be to create Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, or would we be coming up with our own African mRNA COVID vaccine?
Well, we'd have to establish what we're going to do, but we probably would start off with the 1273 or the Wuhan strain of mRNA, and then we'd look at bringing in other variants. The whole program is working with patent issues, and the medicines patent pool will help develop the IP transfer and the patent address the patent issues. So I think those are very important things. As we make more and more variants for the mRNA, we will probably see a lot more generic manufacturing of the original mRNA using the Wuhan strain.
All right, I didn't really understand that answer, and I think let's go back to what an mRNA vaccine is, because it's quite new and it's quite different to the traditional vaccines, which in very layman's terms is my understanding is that you basically take a piece of the dead vaccine and you use that so that the body launches its own antibody response. How does mRNA work?
So there are different vaccine platforms, and mRNA is a new modern vaccine platform that we've used for other disease entities like cancer. And this instructs, this gives a message to the cells, our muscle cells which are in our arm. It gives a message to make an immune response to the pathogen. In this case, it's COVID-19. And so this is a novel mechanism. And using the mRNA technology, you can use this, has been used very effectively for COVID vaccines, and hopefully we can use it for other disease entities. But this is a novel and new way of addressing a vaccine strategy.
All right, so at the moment, am I right, we have Pfizer and Moderna that use messenger RNA?
Correct. So we have at this moment in time two vaccines under EUA, which is the Pfizer and the Moderna. They use at this moment in time an mRNA using the Wuhan strain of COVID-19.
Okay. So when I asked you earlier, would we be just basically getting the tech from Pfizer or Moderna to make the vaccines here? Is the answer yes or no?
So we'll be using the same mRNA technology, and we will be using the same tech transfer processes that have been used to establish mRNA vaccines, and we would use the same background. So whether you use, it will be an mRNA platform. It may not necessarily be the same IP that Moderna uses or that Pfizer uses, but it will also evaluate a variant or the Wuhan strain of SARS-CoV-2 to establish whether this will be a an adequate technology for mRNA COVID vaccine use. So basically, it will be using the mRNA platform and using either the variant or the original Wuhan strain to make a COVID vaccine.
All right, so does that mean there wouldn't be any licensing issues because we wouldn't be copying exactly what Pfizer and Moderna are doing?
Well, the methodology we will use, we may not use exactly the same methodology that Pfizer has used or Moderna has used. And so if the technology is slightly different, we don't have to get tech transfer approvals from Moderna or Pfizer.
So in the WHO presser, they said ideally 9 to 12 months we could see us getting this tech hub up and running, producing vaccines. Would that be your sort of timeline as well, do you think?
Yes, sure. So basically, we will work with Medicine's patent pool to establish the IP issues, and we will then use the tech transfer to Afrigen, and then we'll scale up with BioVac, and we will use the material that we have made to do clinical studies and also animal studies to establish consistency between the work, the mRNA that we've got and what we've done the tech transfer from.
All right, so I want to ask you a little bit about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. That is a viral vector vaccine, so it's different to the mRNA platform and the tech hub that's going to be set up. First of all, are you seeing that the administration of the J&J vaccine is bringing down cases amongst health workers who've been vaccinated? And is an mRNA vaccine possibly better than a viral vector?
So we have different strategies, have different properties, different pros and cons. And so we have to see how the Ad26 vaccine will fare during the third wave. And so what we're doing at this stage with the Sasonki or the Ad26 vaccine program that we gave to healthcare workers, we now are collating all the safety data and we're evaluating the effectiveness. And we will have to see how the vaccine fares during the third wave. The whole idea of the Ad26 single jab was to prevent severe disease, hospitalization and death, and not necessarily mild infection. So we do expect to see breakthrough infections, and we just hope, and as we see as the third wave progresses, the impact that the vaccine had on severe disease, hospitalization and death.
I mean, we here in Gauteng, and I have to ask you this because we listened to the Premier a little earlier today, and he sounded extremely worried. He basically described us as a house on fire, and he said it's a dangerous province to be in currently. What are your thoughts on what we need to do in the next few weeks? Yes, I know that everyone needs to basically shelter in place as much as they can, but would you be in favour of more restrictions? What is your sense of what we need to do in the next few weeks?
So Gauteng is a catastrophe at the moment. We have a problem with a shortage of beds, we have a problem with oxygen, and we have a problem with human resource to care for people. We're hearing about people being cared for at home. We're hearing about people sitting in two days in a chair waiting for a bed, and we hear about people trying to access oxygen at home. And so this is a catastrophe, and I hope that we never are in the same position again, and I hope that the other provinces are ready and prepared and don't find ourselves in the same situation as we are in Gauteng.
What is your sense of why it got to this point? Is it a failing on government's part to get the vaccines timeously? Is this a bad planning situation, or was there very little we could have done?
I think the issue is we have to look at the issue of the Gauteng Department of Health and its leadership and the way the health system works in Gauteng. Obviously, having hospitals going on fire and having poor preparation prior to the third wave does make things more complicated. We should not be running out of oxygen, we should not be running out of beds, and we should have enough human resources because this is the third time we're doing this.
I have to ask you one last question. I know you're a paediatrician by training, and I want to ask you about children and younger people getting COVID-19. We're hearing more and more reports, but we don't know if they're anecdotal, of younger and younger people ending up in ICU. Are the new variants, the beta variant, the Delta variant, we know that Delta is also circulating, are they more dangerous, more transmissible, and are children getting sicker and sicker?
So we have to evaluate this, and we still have the beta variant that's circulating in our country. Children are still less likely to have severe illness and require hospitalization. But obviously, we have to make sure that we're monitoring this. Children will get infected, and we have to make sure that we follow their course of illness. But up until now, at a global level, children have done much better, far better than adults, irrespective of the area of the world they're coming from.
You know, I know that you have lived through and treated so many patients and young patients with HIV, and you've done groundbreaking work with cutting down the vertical transmission of HIV to mother and unborn child. Having lived through and treated patients through the HIV epidemic in South Africa, how does what we're going through now compare to the worst of that? And how does today's announcement signal a bit of a game changer, not only for COVID vaccine production here in South Africa, but also, as you've mentioned, possible HIV vaccines too?
So we're in a desperate situation at this moment in time with the COVID pandemic, and it is devastating to see our country buckle and reel over this third wave. And so I hope that this mRNA technology and our investment in manufacturing and vaccine development will help us with future pandemics, and will be more prepared, and also help us with other diseases like TB and HIV.
And if you had to make one suggestion to the Gauteng provincial government to get us through the next 2 weeks, what would it be?
Well, make sure that you have enough human resources, make sure that you have enough oxygen, and make sure that every bed that's available you can utilize, and make sure that we have the capability to respond and not let anyone run out of oxygen or have to die without oxygen.
I want to thank you so much for your time this evening. That is the President and CEO of the SA Medical Research Council, Professor Glenda Gray, giving us some great insight into what this messenger RNA tech hub is going to do for vaccine production here in South Africa in the medium term. So that's sort of 8 to 12 months down the line. But it does seem like it's well set up, and it's certainly going to happen in the next year or so. But also some very worrying words from her, calling what's happening in Gauteng with COVID cases a catastrophe.